This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Yes, it's true. We just don't report the news. We make the news. In fact, lately, I frankly just turn the TV on for a very short period of time. I want to see what the news is, and then I turn it off. I actually turn on to the Golf Channel because, I used to be a scratch golfer. I played in high school. I played at Duke. And frankly, there's more reality to that than listening to Fox News, CNN, or MSNBC these days. You need the truth, and you need to be following people who are actually doing something, not just promoting themselves, boosting ratings for advertising dollars. And this week is a perfect example because we had three major developments this week. First of all, our lawsuit class action against the social media companies, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Apple, and others. Antitrust violations. All of them together have monopolized the social media market. They just happen to be run by ultra-leftist heads like Mark Zuckerberg, who I've sued numerous times. And we're going to have Laura Loomer on later on in this show to explain not just that lawsuit, but what she's doing with regard to Rashida Tlaib this week, which I'm going to get to in a second as well. But that case is going forward on the appellate court level. A lower court judge, Trevor McFadden, a Trump appointee, he's only 41 years old, obviously part of the Washington establishment, didn't want to stick his neck out. Trump, has rubber stamped the suggestions of Don McGahn, his disloyal White House counsel, and the Federalist Society, an establishment so-called conservative group, not terribly conservative. And he put on the bench these establishment Republicans, by and large, who don't have the courage to do what needs to be done. So McFadden dismisses the case, goes up to the D.C. Circuit. I take an appeal. The social media companies come in with one pleading, very powerful. They're worth trillions of dollars. Says there's no merit to this case. It should be dismissed summarily. Well, this week, the D.C. Circuit said, no, too quick. We're going to take this case up. We're going to write an opinion. We're going to have an oral argument before that. And that's very important because two of the judges sitting on this three-judge panel, one is a Trump appointee, apparently has more courage than McFadden. Another one is a George W. Bush appointee. There's an Obama appointee. But we've got a shot. And even if they don't rule in our favor, they will probably give guidance to the lower court on how this case can be amended to go forward. We know that the Antitrust Division, my alma mater, where I was as a young lawyer when I helped break up AT&T, that monopoly then, creating competition in the telecommunications industry, we know that they're looking at alleged illegalities of these social media companies because they discriminate against conservatives. They release data which is private. They think they're a country unto themselves. They're run by ultra-leftists. They are dangerous. And, of course, in prior shows, I cautioned President Trump. He needs to listen to people like me and Laura Loomer, not these establishment types, because he wanted to give more power to the social media companies after the tragedies in Ohio and Texas recently to spy on us to determine who they think are crazy. Now, who do you think they're going to find crazy? Turn over to the FBI and everybody else. They're going to claim it's conservatives, people who are, in fact, not in their ultra-leftist camp. This was an important development. And then just last Friday, Laura Loomer brought a case. I brought it for her in the District of Minnesota against Rashida Tlaib, that hateful, rabid Muslim congresswoman who says that the Holocaust gives her a calming feeling. That hateful congresswoman who's going after President Trump for impeachment said, let's impeach the MF. Unbelievable. Low class, frankly, a dangerous individual. because she associates with people with terrorist interests. Her mother this week, when she decided she didn't want to go to Israel after she made a big deal about being banned for her support of Israel's economic, if not otherwise, destruction, her mother issued what was in effect a fatwa on Trump, wishing him bad things. Well, when you do that in the Islamic Muslim community, it's a license to go out and harm someone because these people are radical. There's some good Muslims out there, but there are very radical people that support Tlaib, who have close ties to terrorists or, in fact, are terrorists. And, of course, Ilhan Omar is her ally, and we know her story. We've gone through that in prior cases. But we sued Tlaib for assault and battery and for religious discrimination because she is an anti-Semite, and she assaulted Laura Loomer and battered Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer is going to talk about that in the third segment for her religious beliefs and the fact that Laura Loomer is a Jew. That's what's alleged. She hates Jewish people. She hates the nation of Israel. She hates Christians by extension. This person is a real threat to our country because now she buried herself into Congress and she's working from within, and that's scarier than working from without. And this week, I also filed a brief on behalf of Clive and Bundy in the appeal, which, if you can believe this, the Trump administration allowed the U.S. attorney in Nevada to take. You might remember that Clive and Bundy, his sons, and the other defendants had their supersedious indictment dismissed for gross prosecutorial misconduct, for suborning of perjury, for perjury of government witnesses, and hiding exculpatory Brady material evidence during the trial. And, of course, a whistleblower came forward by the name of Larry Wooten. I recently have obtained documents under the Freedom of Information Act request showing all the heinous crimes that were being committed inside the Bureau of Land Management at the direction, if you can believe this, of the U.S. Attorney in Nevada, who had an interest in covering this up because they orchestrated the entrapment of the Bundys, the attempted entrapment. They were reversing the roles of BLM and the FBI. They were, in fact, the orchestrators of this, and that's why they covered up the exculpatory evidence. Very important. So go to CliveandBundyDefenseFund.org. Donate to our cause. This isn't over. We're also in the court seeking a declaration that the land belongs to the people of Nevada and to the people of Clark County, as it does in Utah, as it does in California, as it does in Arizona and the western states, because the federal government claims ownership, and this gives them, they think, the right to terrorize ranchers. Ranchers have gone out of business like the Bundys in droves. Bundy hasn't, because he stood up to them and won so far. But we need your support on that front. And we also have countersuits for malicious prosecution by Ryan Bundy and by two brave individuals, Stephen Stewart and Richard Levellian, who stood up to them and were acquitted, believe it or not, in those cases. So that's very important. Go to CliveandBundyDefenseFund.org, see what we've done, read our brief, contribute to the cause, because we're fighting not just for the Bundys, we're fighting for you. This was a case of this land is our land. This is a case of standing up for what's right. This is the case of standing up to a tyrannical federal government that thinks that it's above the law, thinks they could come into your land, threaten to kill you, kill your cattle, take over. The evil Senator Harry Reid at the time was trying to sell the land out from under the Bundys, obviously for kickbacks to Chinese environmental interests. I mean, this is everything that's good about America and everything that's bad is contained in this case. You need to see it. I hope that someday there'll be a Hollywood movie about it because the American people need to understand that the Bundys waged a second American Revolution on their own land, and for the time being won, but we can't allow them to lose. And if this dismissal of the indictment is overturned, the Bundys will be back in court. They risk life imprisonment. The government has learned a lot. So-called government, I might add. I don't consider it to be our government when you have people do these things, because this is not the government that our founding fathers included in our Constitution, not at all. But we've stood up to them peacefully and legally, so have the Bundys, and we will continue to do so. And we need your support at freedomwatchusa.org, who also has cases for the Bundys, but I also represent them in their private capacity, and you'll see how if you go to CliveandBundyDefenseFund.org and support that. I want to talk a little bit as well about things that are going on. You see, because Freedom Watch and Larry Klayman and Larry Klayman's clients, that's yours truly. I don't want to sound like George Bush the senior talking the third person, but you see, we have hard-hitting cases. We have citizens' grand juries. And I say this over and over again. It's a little comparative advertising, is that we just don't get documents. You know, we bring hard-hitting cases because our Justice Department is co-opted. It's part of the deep state. And we need to fight ourselves to return the vision of our founding fathers and to save our nation. We cannot ask the Justice Department to do our work. We saw what happened recently with Attorney General Bill Barr taking a dive with regard to indicting James Comey. That was given back as an offering to the Democrats in Congress like Gerald Nadler and others, who, by the way, look the other way at Omar and Tlaib, even though they're Jewish. They're the Jewish left. They probably support Omar and Tlaib before they'd support their fellow Jews and Christians. We have to do it for ourselves because the Justice Department isn't going to do it. And the Bundys are a good example, too, because it was the U.S. Attorney which was allowed to bring this appeal that should never have been brought. It's costing time, a lot of money. Go to CliveandBundyDefenseFund.org and support that defense. But we have to do it for ourselves. And I'm going to talk about this in the second segment. We are fighting on every front. We are your Justice Department. My former group, which I founded, just mainly gets documents and goes on Fox News and pounds their chests and boasts about it. But we need real hard-hitting cases, and that's why we are your Justice Department. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause, join our Justice League, join our coalition of the Jewish right, which isn't just for Jews, it's for Christians. I'm a Jewish Christian. I believe in Jesus. But I'm very proud of my Jewish heritage. Jesus was a rabbi. Jesus was perfecting the Jewish faith for the Father. That's why he was sent. But we need your support, and we need it badly, and we need to grow, and we need to get bigger because we have no Justice Department, and there is no other public interest group out there. I don't care how much hype Judicial Watch turns out, all kinds of stuff every day. But what have they accomplished? The documents don't accomplish anything. We need hard-hitting cases. I'll be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Listen carefully and share this show.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
Don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Let me give you an example of what I call comparative advertising, because, see, we need to get bigger. Judicial Watch right now is worth about $95 million as far as its latest 990 returns, probably over $100 million right now. They don't need the contributions as much as we do, but here's what they do, and this is a perfect example. And, you know, they do good by getting these documents, but what do you do with the documents? I've joked about this in the past. Do you hang them on your wall, Tom Fitton? Do you hang them on the wall with pictures of yourself in tight shirts for whatever reason you're advertising your body on social internet? I mean, it's just really strange. And I say that because it is strange. But this is something that needs to be unstranged, okay? Because Freedom Watch does what Judicial Watch used to do when I ran it, is that take the documents, do something that is hard-hitting, do something that's positive, have citizens' grand juries. We have indicted Mueller. He's going to be tried. He's going to be convicted ultimately. We're going to be indicting the rest of them, Rosenstein, the Lovebird, Strzok and Page, the intelligence czars of Clinton, Brennan, and Clapper. And when I listen to the hype on Fox News, I don't watch it anymore. I turn it on, probably watch it no more than I watch CNN, MSNBC for different reasons. I want to see the conservative, so-called conservative perspective, and Fox, of course, is turning left under the leadership of Lachlan Murdoch. But I just want to see what's going on. I turn it off. I go to the Golf Channel or something else because I don't want to be lied to. I'm tired of being lied to. And this week, you know, listening to Lou Dobbs, listening to Sean Hannity, listening to Jeanine Pirro, listening to Greg Jarrett, I want to throw up because they continue to offer this false narrative that our government is going to do something for us. It's not. This deceives you. It boosts ratings. They have to give you hope to get you back, to get advertising dollars. And Tucker Carlson, he does the same thing. He's smarter than the others, but frankly, It's the same nonsense. I would call it BS. You need to spend your time listening to this radio show, sharing it. You need to spend your time listening to what our clients are saying, Jerry Corsi, Laura Loomer, Judge Roy Moore, Sheriff Joe Arpaio. These are the people who stuck their neck out and continue to stick their neck out and get vilified and smeared by the leftist fake news media. And Fox doesn't stand up to protect them. You won't see any of these people on Fox because this isn't politically correct. This isn't socially acceptable to actually have somebody who's going to do anything because you might be retaliated against yourself. And that's what you need to keep in mind. As far as Judicial Watch is concerned, I get flattered. I've had issues with fitting in them over the years. I wish I didn't have to. I wanted my little baby when I left to run for the U.S. Senate to succeed, but it was taken over by somebody who, frankly, subverted it in a number of different ways. And now when I go to a hearing, just a few weeks ago, I went to a hearing for Sheriff Joe Arpaio where we sued CNN, Chris Cuomo, son of Mario Cuomo, who doesn't like to be called Fredo, and we sued Rolling Stone and the Huffington Post for defaming Sheriff Arpaio as a felon. He's not a felon. His misdemeanor indictment is going to be thrown out. It already was pardoned by the president. And sitting there in the gallery are two of Judicial Watch's so-called lawyers, not litigators really, but paper pushers mostly. Jim Peterson, who I hired during the days that I ran Judicial Watch, and a guy named Michael Bekesha. And I get flattered by this because they stalk me. At nearly every hearing, they show up. What are they there for? They think that that's going to intimidate me. It's to the point of ridiculous. And most of the time, they show up without even wearing a business suit. It looks like they walked in off the street pushing a cart. Jim Peterson looks a little bit like Goofy in the Disney World movies. Love the one you're with, okay? They're paying you a good salary, okay. Try to intimidate Larry Klayman. But I'm not intimidated, no more than you should be intimidated. And that's why I asked you to support Freedom Watch, because, okay, documents, great. Okay. But what we need now is action. Our country's hanging by a thread. And if we don't do it ourselves, it isn't going to be done by our Justice Department. I gave you examples today as why that's the case. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause. Let us get bigger. Join our Justice League. You are the superheroes. I've said that. You are Batman. You are Superman. You are Wonder Woman. You are Aquaman. You are the Flash. We can bring this country back. By the way, watch Justice League because, it's fictional, but it's really not fictional. And this is exactly what we need to do, and it's why you need to join our Justice League and become part of the movement to restore the nation to the vision of the Founding Fathers, not with documents. Take the documents where the sun don't shine. We got enough documents. Now we need real action. And I thank you for your support. God bless you. We'll be right back with Laura Loomer. She is a superhero. Listen to what she has to say, and listen, more importantly, to what she is doing.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with my client, my friend, someone who, if President John F. Kennedy were still alive and still writing his books, Profile and Courage, he would have included Laura Loomer in a Profile and Courage. She's just brought a lawsuit against Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, that very hateful, rabid Muslim congresswoman from Michigan, for assault and battery. And we had a major victory this week with regard to our social media class action lawsuit in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. I introduce you to Laura Loomer, who's running for the U.S. Congress in Palm Beach County. I endorse her personally. And she is somebody that you need to watch because you see a lot of people in this country just talk. They don't act. Or they get documents, hang them on the wall and say, gee, let's go on Fox News. Now, Laura Loomer is not going to be seen on Fox News because she's too far out there. She's actually doing things, and it scares these networks. But it shouldn't scare you Because, you see, if we're going to bring this country back to the vision of our founding fathers, we need people with courage like Laura Loomer. We need people who are willing to risk all like our founding fathers did to save this nation. I introduced you to Laura Loomer, and I want you, Laura, to explain what this case about Rashida Tlaib is all about and how we just brought this case in the District of Minnesota. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org, also on your websites. It's going to be widely publicized. Tell us what it's about.
Yeah, well, thank you for your kind words and your endorsement. I truly appreciate that, Larry. And, this case that we brought against Rashida Tlaib is a case for assault and battery. And if you recall, last year I was on your show from Minnesota, and I was reporting on two rabid anti-Jewish, anti-Muslim candidates running for Congress by the names of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. And this was when they were still candidates. And I warned they were going to get elected and they were going to be big issue for President Trump once they were elected to Congress. And I was correct. And while I was at one of their joint campaign events in Minnesota one day, I asked Rashida Tlaib about her views on Israel and Jews and whether she would condemn Hamas. And while Ilhan Omar was standing right next to her, Rashida Tlaib lunged towards me, physically assaulted me, attacked me, and tried to steal my cell phone, which I was recording the event on, okay? And I filed a police report with the Minneapolis Police Department. Like I said, the assault was caught on video, and so there's evidence, and nobody from the Minneapolis Police Department got back to me. Well, since that report has been filed, Keith Ellison, who's also a Muslim and a political ally of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, has been elected as the Attorney General. And Attorney Generals are essentially the top cops, so they're in charge of the police forces in Minnesota. And so that is of concern to me. And I realize that now that nearly a year has passed and no one has gotten back to me, the only way this is going to advance is by, filing this lawsuit. And so that's what I've done with your help. Of course, you're representing me. And Rashida Tlaib is not above the law. The Democrats love saying that Trump is above the law, or that that he thinks he's above the law, or Republicans think that they're above the law, right? Well, I'm here to say that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar aren't above the law. And if you're going to be a vile Jew hater and you're going to physically assault a Jewish journalist or any American for simply asking you a question about U.S. foreign policy, then you should be sued and you should be dealt with legally.
Absolutely. And see, you have the courage to do it, and it's not without risk. I mean, these people are frightening. The people that they have with them, their supporters, their contacts, they have these connections with groups that either support terrorism or, in fact, are terrorists. This is something which is very, very significant. And now they are the Manchurian candidate, so to speak. You can call her the Palestinian candidate. I might add, the use of the word Palestinian, Newt Gingrich talked about that a while back, and he was right about this. I don't always agree with Newt Gingrich, but Palestinians, that refers to everybody who lived in Palestine, not just these rabid anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli interests that occupy the West Bank. That at one time the Palestinians, were fairly rational people, but they've been turned, frankly, a lot of them into savages over time. And Tlaib supports them. And, just this week, she made reference to her mother, how she was denied seeing her mother, and her mother effectively put a fatwa on Trump. It's just unbelievable. These people are in Congress, and the Democratic Party is going lockstep along with them. The Jewish left in the Democratic Party is looking the other way. Of course, they support the Palestinians more than they support their own people, generally speaking. And yet you, Laura Loomer, you're standing up here. And Freedom Watch has a coalition of the Jewish right, of which you are a member, which we hope to make bigger, because people need to understand that Jews generally are not like what you see in the Jewish left, on CNN or MSNBC. Over time, the people that have been the most vicious towards me have been leftist Jews, and I'm of Jewish heritage. So you stand up for what you think is right, and that's why you are so exceptional. Now, let's talk about another case this week, which you're also a plaintiff, and that is the lawsuit which we brought for Freedom Watch for discrimination by the social media companies. Our YouTube subscriptions have barely gone up in 2 years. Clearly, there's a governor on them. They won't let them rise despite all the news that we're making. And you've got Instagram YouTube, as I said, Google in general, Apple, and others, Facebook, of course, who are discriminating. You have a lawsuit for that we brought for you against Facebook for branding you as dangerous. You're not dangerous. I'll tell you who's dangerous. It's the people that we've been suing. And consequently, we got a good ruling this week in the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. These big, powerful media companies worth trillions and trillions of dollars who together are an oligopoly. They have monopoly power. I'm a former antitrust lawyer and still an antitrust lawyer. I helped break up AT&T when I was a Justice Department lawyer. Well, the media companies came in when we took an appeal of a lower court ruling, interestingly enough, by a Trump appointee, which dismissed the case. Trump's been rubber stamping a lot of establishment Republicans, rhinos on the bench. Well, the D.C. Circuit was entertaining a motion to dismiss the appeal, and they said, no, this case is going forward. We want to hear this appeal. And we got a very good panel, a recent Trump appointee who does have more courage. We got George W. Bush appointee and one Obama appointee. So we have a good shot on this. So tell us about what this is about, Laura. I can give you my legal side of it, but why this is so important to you, this class action against Google, what they've done to you.
Yes, of course. Well, this is another case that you have filed for me and you're representing me in. And I remember I contacted you when I was permanently banned from Twitter last November. And that's when we filed this lawsuit against the big tech social media companies, Google, Apple, Facebook, and Twitter. It's an antitrust case because they are conspiring and colluding among each other to censor conservatives. And you know, a lot of information has come out about this since we filed, which is actually really great. So when we filed this case, of course, people called me a right-wing conspiracy theorist, and they said that censorship of conservatives was a right-wing conspiracy. And then I handcuffed myself to Twitter and, you know, got international recognition, became the #1 trending story on social media, and brought awareness to this issue. Well, now, you know, you have the President of the United States tweeting about it. You have Project Veritas undercover exposés where you have executives from Google and Twitter on camera admitting to wanting to control the 2020 election and censoring President Trump. You have whistleblowers who are turning over documents to the DOJ antitrust division regarding Google's attempts to silence and censor conservatives, okay? And you have this growing case of evidence, just trove of documents and evidence of conservatives online who have been shut down and silenced, while terrorist organizations, Antifa, people who threaten to kill the president of the United States are allowed to use these platforms, okay? And so this has big implications politically, but also for our country, because what we're witnessing right now is a total erosion of our constitutional rights, particularly the First Amendment. But I would take it and say that this is no longer just a free speech issue like we and many others had first positioned it. It is now a civil rights issue. We now have people who are having their civil rights completely violated, where if you're a conservative, you will be targeted and you will be financially blacklisted and silenced until you conform with the left and their radical ideology. And you see the way that Chase Bank shut down my online access to my bank account, and they've done it to several others as well. And you know, the social media censorship is just the beginning. You mentioned that, you know, you have been, a leader in antitrust legislation for many years now, and you'd be the first to say that this can get very ugly very fast. First, it starts with shutting down your Facebook and your Twitter. Then, you know, they target a few people on Chase Bank and PayPal and whatever. Well, how far-fetched is it to say that we will soon be seeing Trump supporters have their phones shut off by the phone companies, their electric shut off by the power companies, their water shut off by the water companies, their buildings canceling their leases or their rental agreements in their apartment buildings or condo facilities for being Trump supporters, right? This is where we're headed if we allow for the monopolistic tech companies, which control the internet now, to have this much power, because they now have more power than the President of the United States. The tech companies are censoring President Trump, and we have a Republican in the White House. We have President Trump in the White House, okay, and this is what they're doing while we have a Republican in the White House. Just imagine what they're going to do if we have a Democrat in the White House.
You know, and President Trump, frankly, Laura, needs to meet with you and me. because he doesn't always get good advice. He's very well-intentioned. I love the president, but he's listening to people. He's so preoccupied. He has so many problems of people attacking him that it's hard to see the forest from the trees. And recently, in response to the tragedies in Ohio and Texas, he's actually advocated expanding the powers of the social media companies to spy on everybody. Now he's also backing the intelligence community, to allow for the continued mass surveillance of the American people. And he's been victimized by this. And if they get this greater power and they can, in fact, determine who they think is not mentally, got all of his marbles or her marbles, you could wind up like the Soviet Union, with people being put away because they're claimed to be crazy. We cannot increase the power of the social media companies. We have to, in fact, reduce the power. Here's the irony.
Well,
the one thing that Elizabeth Warren maintains should be done in breaking them up is actually correct. I can't stand her, Pocahontas, but she's actually right on this one.
Right, but then we have these blowhard Democrats like Warren who are claiming to care about tech censorship, and even people like Tulsi Gabbard, who's a total communist and an Antifa fangirl. And they're like, oh, my God, big tech, break them up. But they're taking donations from big tech. So, you have a lot of people who are just absolutely full of crap. President Trump is doing a wonderful job, but I agree he needs to get better advice from people like me and you, because some of the people who are giving him advice on social media censorship really have a surface level understanding of it. And I would love nothing more than to meet with the president and tell him how deep this goes, because he does have a good intention. He's talking about it. He had the social media summit at the White House. I wasn't invited. You weren't invited. But they didn't, from my understanding at the summit, talk about the financial blacklisting or really just how serious this is now, because Facebook and Twitter are just the beginning. This is going to get...
Well, this is what I'm talking about, Laura, is that the president, I love him too, okay? He's our last hope, really. The next president is going to be 100 times worse than Obama or Clinton if it's a Democrat. And I don't tell people who to vote for as the head of a public interest group. I can say it personally. I can endorse you personally, but not by virtue of Freedom Watch. But you see, he's too timid about getting people in there that are the real fighters, that are the real gladiators. These establishment types, they just flock to him. They make money off of him. Look what happened with this clown Scaramucci, complete clown, who's disloyal. But yet people like you and me, and there are others out there who really believe in him, we're not invited. So, because he's getting bad advice. Now, we have about 15 seconds, Laura. Where can people reach you if they want to get in contact with you?
Well, people can go to my website, lauraloomer.us, and subscribe to my newsletter. And for people who would like to, support my campaign, of course, they can do so by going to lauraloomerforcongress.com. And when I'm in Congress, you can better believe that I'm going to be fighting against big tech and fighting against these Jew-hating jihadists like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib.
Thank you, Laura. We'll have you back again soon. You are a true American hero.
Thanks for having me.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back, fellow patriots, people of faith, people who believe in God. People believe that this country was put here, much like Israel, because God wants it to exist, and it will continue to exist. I might add, that we talked about earlier in the show, the lawsuit that we brought against Rashida Tlaib. We're making a point. We want justice. Laura Loomer deserves to be paid damages for the assault and battery of Rashida Tlaib. By the way, it happened in the presence of Ilhan Omar. She was in Minnesota promoting Ilhan Omar and her own campaign at the time. And Laura Loomer just showed up and asked certain questions which needed to be asked, and she wound up getting assaulted and battered in a violent fashion. And you can watch the video of that, too. It's linked to our complaint. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Watch the video. We're not making this up. You won't believe it. Because Laura Loomer taped the assault and battery as it was occurring. But this is what's important, is standing up to these despots, whether it's people inside of the deep state, whether it's radical Muslims, whether it's radical any group of people. We don't discriminate. I believe in civil rights. I'm a civil rights lawyer. We have valiant conservative African-American clients like Demetric Penny. We've got others out there who are part of groups where there's a radical element. And this radical element has banded together radical African-Americans, radical Muslims, atheists, radical people of the Jewish left, of my own background. They're all banding together, socialists, communists, all of them. And they want to destroy the country. They want to deconstruct it. They want to take it down to ground zero. Then they hope to seize control and build it back up. And you can see that in the candidates that are running, many of them for the Democratic Party. These will be the enablers. These will be the maturing candidates that will move this country so far left that will look closer to the Soviet Union than even Russia today. I mean, they're going to make Vladimir Putin look like a Democrat by the time they're done. And that's why we need to stand up to them. And that's why we need more than documents. It's why we need hard-hitting legal cases, peacefully and legally. We do it in the courts. We do it in the court of public opinion. And, of course, we have our citizens' grand juries. The American people have the right to commission their own grand juries. The American people have the right to try these criminals, to convict them, to sentence them. Then, of course, we face an issue of meting out the sentence. And we want to get the attention of President Trump. I hope you will write to him at Mar-a-Lago. You can get the address, off of the Internet. Write to him at the White House. Say, bring Larry Klayman in. Bring Laura Loomer in. Bring Sheriff Joe Arpaio in. Bring Judge Roy Moore in. Bring Jerry Corsi in. Bring them into a conference. Listen to them. They're actually doing something. They're not just there promoting themselves and raking in fundraising monies hand over fist, or going on Fox News to help Fox News boost its ratings under what is now a leftist leadership under the Murdoch brothers. They're leftists. So you need to send the show around. You need to contribute to freedomwatchusa.org. You need to support the Clive and Bundy Defense Fund.org, the Corsi Defense Fund, LegalDefenseFund.org. We need to take action ourselves like our founding fathers did in the days leading up to the revolution and thereafter. We're going down the drain. Turn Fox News off. Turn them all off. Just get the news. Then spend your time joining us, actually doing something. I'm not saying you're doing it, because I know you're loyal supporters and patriots, but those people that are armchair quarterbacks that are eating popcorn, watching Fox News, they're not accomplishing any good. And that's why we need to accomplish good. And it's why you need to support us at freedomwatchusa.org, at Clive and Bundy Defense Fund.org, at Corsi Legal Defense Fund.com. He's the one that gave the testimony that got Robert Mueller indicted, that now is going to lead to his conviction and sentencing. So I can't say it enough. And I want you to realize that what is at issue here is returning to our Judeo-Christian roots, returning to the Ten Commandments, returning to what's taught in the Bible, returning to our faith in the Father and his Son, and following their word and asking for them their divine guidance. That's what really matters here. Not gun control, okay? You're going to always have maniacs. If they don't have a gun, they'll use a knife, or they'll use something else, or they'll use the B word. I don't want to use it on radio. But you need to pay attention, because time is short, and we need your help. So I want to God bless America, of course. I want God to bless your country. I want God to bless your family and you. And I want God to save America, and I need your help to do it. Until next week, with Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Thank you for listening.